Welcome to Speak Out Charlotte. I'm your host, Jim Puckett. Thanks for joining us tonight. We get together every Tuesday night to talk with people who are involved in Charlotte-Mecklenburg region to talk about the challenges we have, the opportunities we have, and any general information that we think will make your life and you a better informed person. Good evening. Welcome to Speak Out Charlotte. I'm your host, Jim Puckett. Tonight we've got a great guest who's going to talk to us about some inside baseball with the Republican Party. Some of it's probably similar with the Democratic Party, but actually the running and how you take care of the officers and the leadership of it. Jim Womack is with us. Jim, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Jim.
You're running to be the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party. It's a statewide race. It's one of those things that people don't hear about very often. Doesn't happen all the time. The last chairman was around for a while, but it's not unlike running for governor or lieutenant governor in a way. You've got to cover a great big geographic area. How are you liking it so far?
Well, like most public servants, I enjoy getting out across the state, meeting all the people. That's my favorite part of the race itself. It's not fun having to raise money and spend money on things that seem frivolous, but it certainly is worth the effort to try to take the leadership of the party and take it in a new direction that will be of benefit to citizens of North Carolina.
Thanks. We're going to get into kind of what the party does and the structure and kind of how it works and why there is one. But let's start off with yourself. Let people just kind of get comfortable with who you are and who your people are, where you're from, your background, your education, those types of things.
Well, sure. I'm originally from the state of Arkansas. I was born in Russellville, Arkansas back in 1977. My dad was in the radio business and still is actually to this day, works 7 days a week and owns a number of radio stations in the Mid-South. When he was in the radio business in Missouri, I went to high school there and then was appointed to the military academy at West Point. I attended there for 4 years in New York and then joined the active service and served for 20 years on active duty in the military, to include combat duty in Operation Desert Storm. I retired after 20 years, and my wife, who continued on in the military, was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That's what brought me to this wonderful state, and that was in 1999, and we've been here ever since and have no intention of leaving. I love this state, and it's become part of my being. It's a state I love. It's a conservative state, and I got active in public service after I retired from a second career as an IT executive. I was an information systems executive selling sales and services all over the country, to include building and architecting the North Carolina Health Information System, which I engineered in early 2000s. I retired from a second career when my wife went off to Operation Iraqi Freedom. Wow. And she was gone for 15 months, and I still had children at home at that time, and somebody needed to be a full-time parent, so I did that for a while. And then when she retired in 2014, we both were in public service. So she's currently serving as a school board member in Lee County. I was a county commissioner there for 4 years, and then appointed to the State Mining and Energy Commission by Senator Phil Berger. I served there for several years, and then recently we reconstituted as the Oil and Gas Commission. I've been the chairman of the Oil and Gas Commission since it was reconstituted. My wife is on the State Social Services Commission, so we pretty much commit most of our lives to service of others in the state of North Carolina.
Well, and God bless her for her service on the Board of Education. I served on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education, and outside of a short stint of being the president of the Homeowners Association, it's the worst job there ever is.
Thankless job, yes, sir.
It is truly a thankless job, and tough, and particularly tough if you tend to be of a conservative, particularly fiscal conservative bent. It's an even tougher thing. So I appreciate her service,
yes, sir.
As well as yours. Obviously, for the military, also had a brother who was also career Army about the same time you were. Y'all had about the same path. They have bumped into each other a time or two. He's stationed out of Raleigh, actually, Raleigh, Durham's where he lives. So you've decided you want to be chair of the party. The party clearly, the Republican Party, has in the last couple of weeks, couple of days, been in the news with the current chair, Robin Hayes. But you were running prior to all of that. So this isn't like you didn't jump into this as once you kind of saw an opportunity or an opening. You had been been running to challenge leadership, or at least talk about a different path before it became obvious to many people that we needed a different path. Let's talk about that. Why did you decide to kind of run for? Let's back up even further than that. The parties basically have, every county has a county party, and all the way down to precincts, but they kind of run at a county basis. Anyone who's familiar with local politics, particularly from the party side of it, that's kind of what they get used to. They're used to precinct meetings and those types of things, county convention. But the state operates at a different level. Let's talk a little bit about what you do as the party itself, and then specifically as the chair.
Okay, for those that aren't informed, the Republican Party is operated much the way that the Democrat Party is operated, the two principal political parties, and they have structure at the state, at the district, and at the local levels. At the state level is a party headquarters. In our case, it's in Raleigh on 1506 Hillsborough Street. Mm-hmm. And out of that headquarters, we manage the affairs of the party, principally fundraising, recruiting candidates, and helping to promote those candidates for political office. And then at the district level, there's 13 districts in the Republican Party, and they're in the 13 congressional districts. Mm-hmm. And they're organized as well to manage at the regional level the activities of the party. And then at the county level is what most people are familiar with are the county Republican Party headquarters, the county Republican Party operations, and those are the ones that organize precincts and that manage get out the vote efforts, that register voters, and support the platform of the party. They also do some degree of fundraising, and they have annual events. So that's the way it's structured. My interest in the political world really stemmed when I was just a citizen in Lee County, retired, and back in the early 2000s, and I had a friend that was a Korean War vet, who had chickens in his backyard, and he was getting fined by the city of Sanford for having chickens in his backyard, and I came to his rescue and sat down with the city attorney and the city councilman, most of whom were Democrats, mm-hmm. and said, what do we got to do to keep this guy from having to pay a fine? He's just wanting to raise chickens, you know. I mean, they do it in downtown Los Angeles, right. In New York City. Why can't he raise chickens in Sanford, North Carolina? And the answer was, well, because that's the way the rules are, you know. And I said, well, how do I change the rules? And I sat down and I pulled apart the animal control ordinance for Lee County, and sure enough, somebody was afraid of the Latin population growing and having chickens and goats everywhere. So I rewrote the animal control ordinance for Sanford and Lee
right.
County, and I got it passed by working with Democrats. And everybody said, you know, you're a natural at this. You should do more of this. And I kind of scoffed at it because I'm not really a political person. Mm-hmm. But then I was recruited by our then county chairman to run for office as a county commissioner in 2010 on the bow wave of the Tea Party movement. Mm-hmm. I consider myself a Tea Party conservative. I believe in limited government and minimal spending and getting value for every dollar that we take from the taxpayers. So I joined, got active in the Republican Party, ran for commissioner, and knocked off a longtime incumbent. And actually, at that time, the incumbent had left office, but a longtime magistrate from town that was well known as a Democrat is who I beat. And then I got more active in the party itself. From 2014, after I left office, from up to the present, I've been extremely active in the party and helping recruit candidates and groom them, run their campaigns, and get them elected to office. We're a Democrat county, much like Mecklenburg. Right. We're Democrat controlled or dominated, but Republicans win in my county, and that's what interested me in trying to elevate my game to the state level, because I think the state could use a lot of what we do in Lee County. We are all about the base of the party, conservative values, traditional American values and principles. We honor our veterans. We believe in limited government, and we believe that every equal opportunity for everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's what's the essence of the party platform of the National Republican Party, the State Republican Party, and that's what we felt we should be doing to promote that better and improve the brand and the message of the party. For many years, the State Republican Party has been run like, the best analogy would be like a country club. Mm-hmm. Elite members that have the money and the time to go to all the events, and to some extent taking for granted the base of the party, the activists, the voters, and the individuals who are running for local office. It seems like they were almost beneath the scope of the state party. And I got active in going to conventions and trying to convince people that there's a better way. We should run the party like a business. And our purpose is to elect conservative Republicans to office and to represent the people and the will of the people and to hold those representatives accountable for their actions. So I ran in 2017. I attempted to run to be the state party chairman at that time because I believed that we were on the wrong path. We had just fired our state party chairman that was popularly elected and installed someone that wasn't popularly elected. And I'm not going to cast any aspersions at our current leader team, but I just felt like that they were not in touch with the base of the party. And so I felt compelled to run again in 2019 when I was unsuccessful in 2017. So I jumped in the race, tried to recruit actually someone else to run, and was unsuccessful in recruiting a candidate. And I said, well, we're going to change the path of this party if I have to do it myself. And no one else would step up, so I did. And since February of this year, February and March, I've been active, going all over the state, meeting people, listening to their issues, and doing my best to gear up for winning the race this year.
It's interesting because, and you would not think about Lee County and Mecklenburg County being similar, but they are. Even from my perspective, even in kind of the leadership and the way the Republican Party's kind of gone about party structure also. Mecklenburg has a very tough time because it's essentially a party that has got Republicans in the northern sector and Republicans in the southern sector and a huge amount of Democrats in between. And so it gets very hard to coordinate. One of the things that really happens is it's very active Republicans up in Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson. Probably can't name some of the elected Republicans that are in Matthews, Mint Hill, and Pineville, just because we could be 3 counties apart. There are 1 million people in between us. And so that's difficult. It's hard to coordinate that. The state has kind of a similar dilemma, and it's getting even more so. You've always kind of had an east versus west component of that. That was, and it was kind of conservative versus liberal in a way. And what was really weird is there were Democrats that were far more conservative than some of the Republicans, even in Mecklenburg County. That I think has lessened a bit, just because North Carolina has become less agribusiness and like the rest of the world is kind of shrinking. But what's kind of taking its place is kind of this rural versus urban component of it. And the urban side is clearly Democratic, but also clearly huge amount of population when you come to national and statewide elections. What do you see the challenges and how do you deal with the challenges of that going forward from a Lee County and a Mecklenburg County and engaging Republicans across a really broad spectrum with, even though in the same party, kind of different wants and needs?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a change in the demographic in the state. We're seeing more in-migration into the metropolitan areas, particularly from the north. We have a lot of individuals who are looking for greater amount of government involvement in their lives and government services moving into the city, in the inner city. And you have more of the suburbia and the rural areas migrating or not having as much in-migration. There's growth there, but it's organic growth.
Right.
Politically. So the problem that you have now is that Wake County, Mecklenburg County, Guilford County, to some extent other counties as well, have a divided type of divided political spectrum. So it's very difficult to win races in those counties. In fact, Mecklenburg just had, I think, 1 state level official that was reelected in all of Mecklenburg County.
Out of, I believe, 10 incumbents, local and statewide, 1 guy won.
Right.
And his opponent had a DUI.
And well, that's right. And in Wake County it was very similar. Guilford County also very similar, and we lost one of the most popular sheriffs in the state up there, and actually in a couple of counties. So I'm sure the Democrat Party is crowing right now about this great Flip NC initiative that they had and how successful they were. I can just say that the way you manage the state's demographic and the way you message your brand to that demographic is altogether important, and your activism at the base of the party has to be just as strong, if not stronger, in those metropolitan areas as they are in the rural areas. There are some counties it's almost automatic. It's a matter of which Republican are you going to vote
Right.
for. And it used to be that way with the Democrat Party all over the
Right.
state, and it's no longer that way. Let me just say this, that this, and this is attributed both to the national and to the state level, and we're not that different than the rest of the U.S. There is a tendency to classify a state as a red state or a blue state, and there's or as a swing state, and there is a tendency to say that you're aligned with the Democrat Party, you're aligned with the Republican Party, and there's nothing in between. But the reality is that the growth of the unaffiliateds in North Carolina is dramatic. The Democrats are losing affiliated voters at 20 times the rate that I should say it the other way. The unaffiliateds are gaining voters at 20 times the rate of the Democrat losses. And it's amazing because people are affiliating unaffiliated. And the Republican Party is growing incrementally, but very small in comparison to the unaffiliated.
Right.
So there just doesn't seem to be an interest in being a Republican or being a Democrat. In fact, there's a disinterest in being a Democrat because of their values that have been expressed of late. So the American public and the state citizens have recognized that the Democrat Party really no longer represents their values and their feelings about government involvement in their lives. So now the question is, what do we do with the Republican Party to bring those disaffected Democrats and those unaffiliateds into our party? And so we have to give them something to believe in, and that's the challenge. I'm not sure that anyone has cornered the market on how to do that, but I tell you, there are some things that the Republican Party is doing to reach out to Democrats or to reach out to unaffiliateds to bring them into the party. The two things in particular I would mention, one is we have a pamphlet that we hand out to our black voters in Lee County, and we've circulated all over the state. It's called "Make Black America Great Again," and this pamphlet has some factual information about the origins of the Republican Party.
Right.
And that I think people don't realize that the first 25 or so black state and national level elected officials were all Republicans.
Right.
And that the Republican Party once represented the values of black America, and we think we still do. And that there's been a lot of hype and negativism about whether our party is racist or misogynist or sexist or whatever, and I believe that the party is not. The party platform speaks for itself. The other thing that we use as a tool to try to bring people into the party is a thing called the Political Party Positions on Biblical Values. And this is a form that we created at the urging of Franklin Graham, actually. Reverend Franklin Graham talked about this on the Billy Graham Evangelistic website, and he suggested people should know what's in their party platform before they register and go vote, so that they're consistent with their affiliation and their voting behavior. I found that most Democrats don't realize that their party platform says the things that it says.
Right.
When they affiliate with the Democrat Party, they're affiliating with abortion right up to their time of birth. When they affiliate with the Democrat Party, they are affiliating with a party that doesn't recognize God as the sovereign of this universe. The only time that the word God is used or Jesus is used in the Democrat Party platform is when they're referring to God-given talents to young children. The Republican Party platform, on the other hand, emphasizes the need for prayer. It emphasizes the right to life. It emphasizes marriage as being between a man and a woman, purely consistent with the Bible and its values. That's not to say that we don't tolerate or that we don't welcome people that may believe differently, but that just says that, know your party platform, know what the values are. And so messaging and branding this party with those values is very important to bring people into the party, to grow it, to get it to thrive and prosper in the future.
I think you're dead on there. One of the interesting things is, it's funny when you talk about, particularly within the minority communities, the difference between the Republican and Democratic parties. 80% of African Americans coming out of public education over the last 20 or 30 years would never know kind of where the Republican Party started. They would not realize that initially, I think the first 12 African American congressmen were all Republicans. The first black congressman was a Republican from Alabama.
Right.
Who would ever think that the first African American voted to the U.S. Congress would be a black man from Alabama, and he happened to be a Republican. and a lot to do with Abraham Lincoln and that history. And so there's just kind of been this blind following, which has happened a lot through the 60s, 70s, 80s with both parties. You saw a bit of a flip. Ronald Reagan famously, said he didn't leave the Democratic Party left him, which was kind of the beginning of that. I think now, particularly with the growth in unaffiliated, who don't come automatically to the voting booth kind of with this preconceived notion of where they're going to go. And by the way, that's changed because unaffiliateds a decade ago tended to lean really heavily like the people around them. So up in North Mecklenburg, where I live, which was predominantly Republican, the unaffiliated voted mostly Republican. In the center city of Charlotte, the unaffiliated voted mostly Democrat. The thing I'm seeing now is that just isn't the case. There really are this interest, this piece of, and sad for both of us, it's not a matter of I'm not real sure which party I want to be. It's I don't want to be a part of either party.
Right.
But that does offer up a chance for them, I think, to start to educate on then what do the people stand for. And I'm hopeful, as I think you are, that they will do a little bit of reading, a little bit of listening, a little bit of educating themselves to go, okay, I'm not going to vote for the Republican and I'm not going to vote for the Democrat. What do they kind of stand for? And you have a chance if you've got a really solid message to get the thinkers.
They have to believe that you are incorruptible. Because the brand that's given to politicians in both political parties these days is that of corruption. There are scandals on both sides at the state and the federal level. I would like to think that my leadership of the party in Lee County and Sanford, North Carolina, was incorruptible. I mean, we're not a country club. We're a business. We have a purpose to elect Republicans, and we hold them accountable. We censured one of our elected Republicans recently just because he was voting with Democrats on things that were not of value to the citizens of Lee County. We hold our citizens accountable, and we should at the state level. If the people knew that not only do we believe in the values of our platform, but we will hold our elected officials accountable, they'll join. They'll believe in your party, and they'll contribute money to your party because it's something they get value from. But if they think that you're no different than the Democrats and that you're going to get up there and you're going to follow the money and be bought at any level for any price, then they're not going to believe in your party. They won't vote for you. Then it'll be a popularity contest. Whoever is the most charming in the camera that they'll vote for, and that we can't have that.
And the dilemma you run into as you start to look at this urban versus non-urban area, I think pigeonholes exactly into that. What you find, for example, in Mecklenburg County and perhaps in Wake County, but I've spent my life in Mecklenburg County, is that as it becomes more democratic, the Republicans running for office tend to not take Republican positions. I can remember the county party a number of years ago had a platform issue regarding the building of an arena, for example. But the party, even though the convention voted to put it there, would not support that because there were certain Republicans running for office who felt like, no, if I run on that issue, I'll lose Democratic vote that I need. Well, the problem is I think you also then lose the unaffiliated who go, okay, so you don't stand for anything. So I think we do have to figure out how we start to hold the people who label as Republicans to what we say we believe in.
Right.
One, this is what we believe. We're going to stand by what we believe, and we're going to hold you to that. Right. And I think both sides, Democrats, unaffiliated, and Republicans, tend to go, it's the old Jesse Helms effect. You know what? There are an awful lot of people who didn't like him, but they said, you know what? I'm going to vote for him because I'm not going to be surprised.
Right. He's very
Whatever
consistent.
he tells me is what he's going to do.
And consistency is very important, and that you mean what you say when you run, and that you stand by what you did. Why do you think Donald Trump is so popular among Democrats and Republicans now? And he is very popular.
Yes.
He is because he says what he means, and then he backs it up. He fulfills his campaign promises that he made, and that's what we need more of, more authenticity among our candidates.
I agree completely. I spoke to the Republican convention 2 years ago and said, I don't think you guys have figured out Donald Trump yet. If you really honestly believe that rednecks in Alabama are voting for an arrogant SOB Yankee for president because he's an arrogant SOB Yankee, no, you're crazy. It's what he's saying. You need to listen to what he says.
Right.
We can all, I don't particularly like arrogant Yankee billionaires either, but I do like people who say what they're going to do and then go do it, and I can forget how he delivered the message.
Yeah, it's funny because I went to school in New York for 4 years, so I got a chance to see a lot of people that have the same mannerisms, the same culture as Donald Trump. And I also lived in the Mid-South and in the Midwest and in Europe, and everywhere you go, there are cultural traditions, there are cultural behaviors that you notice. And Donald Trump is really not that much different than a Mid-South Southerner,
right,
in his values and what he's trying to accomplish for America. He loves this country. He's a patriot. He believes in equal opportunity for everyone. The difference with Donald Trump is he's just, what you're seeing is unusual because you don't see so many New Yorkers
right,
in the South. And or Ronald Reagan was very similar. He was authentic. He was genuine, and he said what he meant. And so that's what endears him to people, is because they look past the cultural mannerisms from New York and the arrogance and that sort of thing, but they look at his successes as a businessman and as a president.
Well, and that's, I think, what the Republican Party's got to do here also. We've got about a little over a minute left. I assume you have a website. How can people, within the Republican Party get in touch with you? And let's talk a little bit about when the election is.
Okay, so first off, with the election, the Republican Party state convention is June 7th, 8th, and 9th in Concord, just up the road.
Yep.
And in order to vote, if you're a delegate from your county or whatever, you have to be a delegate from there to vote, and you can go to the convention and pay your fee and vote on Saturday afternoon, June the 8th. It'll be in the middle of the afternoon. The webpage, if you want to know more about my position and status, is Jim for NCGOP. That's Jim, the number 4, NCGOP.com. And I have a Facebook page as well, same name, Jim for NCGOP. I'd welcome anyone to contact me if they've got further questions about the race. And God bless Charlotte and this show.
We appreciate it. If you're not a delegate, and by now most of the delegates are there because we had our conventions, but if you are a Republican and you are concerned, go to the county webpage, and you can link to the leadership there and find out who those delegates are. And just like any other election, let them know who you would like for them to vote for. Jim, we appreciate you being with us.
My pleasure, Jim. Thanks.
Wish you and all the other Republicans the best of luck. We thank you for being with us tonight. We're going to hope that you're going to be back with us again next Tuesday night, and we're looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you and good night.